I call the honourable member Paul Goldsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's very interesting hearing that latest speech on the ETS from the member from the Greens party. It's interesting on ETS. The Greens suggest that they're very interested. They're not interested in what the rest of the world is doing. New Zealand should strike out on its own, regardless of what the rest of the world is doing. At the same time, a couple of days ago, when it comes to other issues like
point of order, the Honourable Dr. Kennedy Graham.
Point of order, sir. The member just incorrectly alluded to the Green Party not being interested in other countries. It was the National Party.
Order. The member is an experienced member. He knows that there is a debating point. Call the honourable member Paul Goldsmith.
So they're very happy to see us strike out on our own on ETS issues. And then when you come to the issue of quantitative easing, for example, watering the milk or debasing the currency, the attitude is everybody else is doing it. We should just go along with the flow and do what the rest of the world is doing. It's funny, there's no need to be consistent on these things, but that struck me as unusual. I was fortunate enough to go to the Kyoto Protocol meeting in December 1997. I was working with Simon Upton at the time, and it was a very interesting conference that they had there, and a hugely ambitious thing that the world was trying to achieve. The first time we're getting a whole set of countries across the world to accept something that would materially lower living standards today in order to ameliorate a problem in the future. And that was a heroic undertaking, and there was always a tension between those in, mainly the developed world, and those out, mainly the developing or growing economies. And 15 years later, sadly, there hasn't been much progress internationally. The first period is coming to an end at the end of the year, and no agreement is in place thereafter. And so the tension between those in and those out has become much more relevant now, given the epoch-making shifts in the global economy in the last 15 years. And so it was hard to justify New Zealand taking significant actions when China wasn't doing anything in 1997. In 2012, it is absurd. And so the government has always said that New Zealand should do its fair share. And New Zealanders expect us to be positioned on the green end of the spectrum. But few would support New Zealand striding out on its own, riding its little pony while the rest of the world hung back. And it's interesting to hear about everybody talking about what Europe is doing as if they were the role model for everything in life. But that is not where we live. We live in the Asia-Pacific region. And when we look amongst our trading partners in the Asia-Pacific region, where do we fit in? What is China doing? Not much. Nothing. What is the US doing? Well, they don't have much of a scheme. Canada, nothing. They've pulled out. Japan, I think, has a little scheme which involves about 1% of the economy. Korea, Singapore, nothing much there. Australia has something, but there's a huge question mark over its scheme politically. And so I found it very difficult when we had, for example, the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment coming in being very critical of our legislation, but admitting to the committee that she had given no consideration whatsoever to what the rest of the world was doing. And I'm afraid I don't think that is good enough. New Zealand does operate in a competitive global economy, and we need to know where we sit in the world and adapt to the situation. So the options are we could just carry on in the direction set in 2007 and become the only country in the world where agriculture is directly drawn into an ETS scheme. That seems to be somewhat reckless. We could drop the scheme entirely like Canada. But we've decided to hold more or less steady in the meantime, not doing too much damage to the New Zealand economy, but having an ETS still in place, ready to ramp up if and when the rest of the world joins with us in combating what is a real issue for the globe. And it's true, the government won't get some of the income that it expected, but it is absurd to call that a subsidy, as some members of the House have done. And when we look across at the other side of the House, we have the Greens really wanting New Zealand to immolate itself on a pyre of self-righteousness on our own. And I don't think anybody who is concerned about New Zealand's jobs and the productiveness of our economy in an open world of competition can stand up to that line of reasoning. And so on that score, Mr. Speaker, I can commend this bill to the House. Thank you.
I call the honourable member Andrew Williams.